All right, thanks guys for coming. It's nice. I mean, how many of you have been to my seminar before? You too, right? You've been to my seminar? Yeah. And I appreciate that. If you've been to a number of my seminars, you'll know that no two are the same. I always mix it up. This one is very unique, and I want to thank Sportsman's Direct for having the seminar tonight. This is a pretty nice opportunity. It's a great facility to come. If you ever have a chance to come down here to see a seminar, come down to Sportsman's Direct. They got it set up, they got it hooked up, and they really care about the anglers. I have my baits here, and my tackle, my books, and my maps. Why? Is because I know when I send people here, they're going to take care of the people who walk through the door. They know their stuff, and I really appreciate the fact that they hosted this event today. So thanks to Sportsman's Direct. So so apparently you know as far as the title goes, Spring Great Lakes Bass, that gives you a little clue as to what we're going to do today. I've never done one quite like this before. It's interesting. This time of year, in a way, can be really easy. I mean, you're talking about 50, 75, 100 fish days are not uncommon this time of year, but it's not guaranteed. You can still go out there and just catch a few. Tomorrow, we're going to have northeast winds. It's going to be a little tough tomorrow if you're going to go out to even just manage the boat and to manage control of the boat. The fishing is going to be a little down probably, but you can still catch fish in those high winds. No problem with the high winds. It's just going to be uncomfortable after it's been so nice here for a while. So anyway, what I want to do is I want to cover some stuff. A lot of times what I like to do is leave you with information that you can use. I always assume when you come to these seminars that everybody knows how to fish. Bass anglers are some of the most knowledgeable anglers in the world, if you ask me. We study, we watch TV shows, we look at videos, we read up on stuff, we compare notes, we compete against each other, we learn. So when I'm doing a seminar, I'm trying to give you information to put in your hands to go out and take out, because I already assume that you already know how to fish. So it's not a one-on-one type of seminar as far as angling goes. But as far as information goes, hopefully I can pull some information out for you and put it in your hands, and you can go out there and have those 50 and 100 fish days with the type of information that I put out there. And if you have my books or my maps or anything, you know what kind of information it is, very detailed and very specific. But we're going to get a little bit more general today here on the type of information that we're going to present in terms of where the fish are located. Location is really important, right? I mean, it's always important. But this time of year, there's some key things about fish location that are different than the rest of the year, except for maybe the late fall. It's very similar to late fall, but not exactly the same. Now, we've been out this week just to show you some of the fish that we've been catching. It's been great. It's been really good this week. This is a friend of mine, Jeff Rollo, and he and I went out. This is last Sunday morning. We went out just for a few hours, and it wasn't. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. I mean, it was calm. It was gorgeous out there, and there were some other boats out there too, fishing these areas that were fishing. We're able to catch fish around the other boats. That's the other thing about this time of year. You don't have to worry about other boats being around because there's plenty of fish to be had. Everybody can be catching fish this time of year. So we went out Sunday. You can see Jeff's got a couple that are in the 4-pound class. He did a little bit better than I did that day. I got a couple, 1 and 2.5 and 1 and 3.5 pound class. But we were fishing different techniques that day. We'll talk a little bit about that too. So Jeff was fishing more of a tube, and I was fishing more suspended. In fact, if you can see, I'm sorry if I'm in your way when you're there, but if you can see over here, there's a crankbait in the fish's mouth. I love crankbaits this time of year, and I fish them really super slow. I just crank them down about halfway down to their depth, and I just crank them really slow back to the boat. It's just fun. I mean, the fish hit everything right now. They're literally hitting everything, but I just like fishing the crankbaits. It's just one of the fun things to do. But Jeff ended up outfishing me this day with using a tube on the bottom. I didn't expect that. I expected I would outfish him, but every day is a little bit different. Now, Jeff also went out this week on Tuesday, and this time he was out by himself, but he provided some pictures. Jeff works with me with my company and everything, and he's out there doing some research for me. And I think you can see what's in the bait. The bait in the fish's mouth is a Canadian mist, is what it is. It's 4-inch Canadian mist. But that's just because Jeff is just hooked up on fishing that one color, and he's really dialed in on it, so he's fishing it a lot, and that's how he's getting his fish. This was on Tuesday. Now, Tuesday was a day that's not too much unlike what tomorrow's going to be like. He was fishing in a northerly wind, and it was blowing kind of northeast, and it was rough out there. But the rough bite brought up some big fish. On Sunday it was calmer. We saw everybody around us on Sunday where they were catching some fish, but nobody was lighting it up, except for one guy out in front of Ports Cove. There were all these people around. This one guy who just kept catching them, which was a riot. He was doing really good. But Jeff found that when he went out and it was really rough out on Tuesday, very much a day like tomorrow's going to be, Jeff did better. He did a lot better. In fact, you're looking at 5, 7, 4, 5, and he got 13 smallmouth between 4 and 6 pounds. Best one was 5, 7. It's a pretty good day, but he got beat up to get it, trust me. He paid the price to go get these fish. So where are these fish? That's the real key here, and that's why I think you're probably here or listening to the seminar right now, is to really find out, where can I get these fish? Well, one of the things you want to look for this time of year, and this is just a map of Lake St. Clair in general off of Google Earth, and so it doesn't show you a lot. Yeah, we're going to zoom in on some things, but one of the things you want to look for is nutrient-rich water. That's one thing this time of year is really key. Why? That's where the bait fish are going to be. If you actually throw in some of this dirty water, you'll see bait fish jumping out of the dirty water. The day that we went out on Sunday, there was kind of a little scum on the water, floating scum, and it was dirty water, but we were catching some fish. We were doing okay. On Tuesday when Jeff went out, he said it was worse. It was the water was just brown, and we saw what the results were. So this is the one time a year, well, one of 2 times a year, when dirty water is a plus. You're looking actually for dirty water. It's going to warm up quicker, it holds more nutrients, it's going to hold the bait fish, and the smallmouth will tend to gravitate towards it. Is it the only place the smallmouth are? No. We're actually getting them out in 12 feet of water as well, and cleaner water. Those are fish we believe are transitioning from their winter areas into now where they're feeding in the shallows. But those spots are far few to come by. The ones shallower, easy to find. What's the easiest way to find them? Look for the other boats. I mean, if you drive down the mountain roads, we're going to talk a little bit about the mountain roads, you can see a group of boats over here at Memorial Park, a group of boats over here at 11 Mile, a group of boats at 10 Mile, a group of boats at Fords Cove, and a group of boats up at 400 Club. Guaranteed. You drive down every day, and you're going to see a group of boats in each one of those spots. Why is that? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about why those spots work here in a little bit. But one of the reasons is there's nutrients there. It's closer to shore. Everybody's fishing roughly 3 to 6 feet of water. But interestingly enough, we're getting our best fish in 8 to 9 feet of water. Okay? Now, tomorrow we might go out and get 3 to 6 feet of water and get our best fish. I don't know. Every day's going to be a little bit different. But right now, 8 to 9 feet of water is really working for us. That's where we're getting these better fish. And this is still in those nutrient-rich zones where the water's a little bit dirty. So let's take a little closer look. This is, again, we're talking about nutrient-rich water. And I think you can start to see with a closer look here where right along the shoreline, see that dirty water? It's dirtier here, it's cleaner out here. This is the water coming in from the St. Clair River, keeps it nice and clean. But close to shore, look how dirty that is. And I say dirty, it's just nutrients, it's got some silt in it, and that's where most of your fish are going to be right now, at least the easier ones to catch. So that's what you're looking for. Where are these nutrients coming from? They're coming from the inflows. They're coming into the lake. You've got the Clinton River brings nutrients down, a lot of nutrients down the Clinton River. The spillway is part of the Clinton River. That brings a lot of stuff down, and that fills up the mountains. We're going to see a picture of that here in a minute. But you also have the little feeders, like Swan Creek, that's up there by Fairhaven and such. Any of these little creeks or canals are bringing a little bit of nutrient into the water, into the system. It's not coming from Lake Huron, that's for sure. You won't see that turn until almost August. That water is going to be blue. And just before August, somewhere in July, it'll start to turn green, the water coming down from Lake Huron, and there'll be more nutrients in that water. But right now, most of the nutrients are closer to shore, and they're coming in from these small feeders. Even Salt River is another one that comes in. Salt River is right over here, and that one is feeding this area, you can see. And this is probably an east wind pushing this, by the way, towards the shore. And you'll see a better shot of that in a minute. But east wind is probably pushing most of this towards shore. But you have let's see here, up in New Baltimore, you've got the Swan Creek up here, you got Salt River over here, you've got the Clinton River coming in over here, and you've got the Black Creek over here with Metro Beach. Each one of these areas and more, any of these little canals are where you want to be. You want to be somewhere around these areas. Fishing the seawalls right around those areas, oh my gosh. I mean, you can just be right on top of a whole pile or school smallmouth right at the seawall corners. If you're anywhere, if there's rock piles right out by these zones, these smallmouth will collect and they'll just build up. And this is just, they're just feeding, they're there, they're hungry, and it's just a lot of fun right now, but they're going to be where the big fish are. So there's, sometimes I will make that trip all the way up to Fairhaven up here and fish that little Swan Creek outlet just to catch the largemouth. They're right there at the seawall. Big largemouth this time of year, and it's a lot of fun. So what you're looking for is dirty water. Totally different than the rest of the year. Yes, sir?
Any largemouth this time of year, or is it too early?
The Swan Creek outlet, definitely. That's got largemouth all the time. In fact, you're going to catch them there for months now. For about the next few months, you'll catch good largemouth there for sure. There's a weed bed that forms right in front of the 400 Club. Largemouth seem to like that too. Over by Metropolitan Beach, or now they call it St. Clair Metro Park, right? The largemouth tend to collect in that bay over there. Selfridge. Selfridge is famous for largemouth over there. You've got shallow water, a shallow bay, and back in that bay, that is famous for largemouth. Now, are you talking about a size, specific size, or quality, or just largemouth in general? Okay. The other thing that's classic is St. Clair Metro Park, or the Black Creek that comes out of it. There's largemouth. Some of the best largemouth of the year you're going to find right up and down there right now. Yeah, good question. Yeah, we talk smallmouth all the time, don't we? But the closer you get to shore, fishing shoreline features, the more you're going to get closer to the largemouth. Jefferson Beach Marina, there's another example. Down there, you know, the rocks that are down there, you can throw up against those rocks and catch largemouth right now. Yeah, they'll be there. Forest Cove. Forest Cove is another good target for largemouth. So anytime you get closer to shore like that, classic largemouth features, right? Bays, and seawalls closer to shore, rocks, and like that, they're going to be there. What's funny though is that we'll be out fishing in 12 feet of water, and all of a sudden we'll hook a largemouth, and it's like, okay, what are you doing out here? We'll catch them out there from time to time. But if you want to target them, closer to shore. Good question. Do you have a question?
No, I was going to say, it does seem like in the last 2 or 3 years that the largemouth have moved out a little bit. You get a lot more numbers of largemouth in the smallmouth waters.
Right.
And good quality.
Not sure why that is either, but it's a fact, isn't it?
I fished it for many years and never caught a smallie. I mean, never caught a largemouth. Never, ever. And I bet you last year we put 30 or 40 in.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun when you're catching them like that. And interestingly enough, some of our largemouth spots aren't working out the last 2 years. And I don't know why that is. They're probably where you're saying. They're a little more offshore on some of those spots. I have some spots up in by New Baltimore and stuff that they've been guaranteed largemouth, and they haven't been there. Not sure why. But you're finding them offshore a little bit more.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fun. Sometimes you hook into one of the big ones out there too. So let's take a little bit more of a trip down the shoreline here. This is what we call the mile roads. The mile roads are basically from 9 Mile all the way up to St. Clair Metro Park, which is up here. So 9 miles down here, St. Clair Metro Park is up here. And that's roughly the area that we call the mile roads. And the mile roads, as you can see, here's your blue water right here. See how nutrient rich that water is? And the water coming out of here, this is the Black Creek. See it spilling out? You can see the nutrients come out, wrap around. The spillway is over here. And so the spillway is actually spilling out nutrients. And if you can see right here, look at right down the shoreline. Look at that. Look at that line of nutrients going right down the shoreline. So yeah, it's stained water. We're normally looking for clear water on Lake St. Clair, but not this time of year. This time of year, this is ideal. And that's why, for whatever reason, I find that the mile roads fish the strongest this time of year.
How long does this time of year last?
That's a good question. It's very. The question is how long does this time of year last? That's the question. And it all depends on the weather. If it heats up fast, they'll go and spawn fast, and they'll be in the post-spawn really fast. If it stays cool, this period could last into the end of May, almost, and then they start to spawn. Once they start to spawn, it could go that long, possible. But it's all weather dependent. So we could be out of it in the next 2 weeks, or we could have another 4 weeks in it. Good question, yeah. How long does it last? Once you get into the spawn, then you're starting to look for cleaner water. Good question, yeah, excellent. So the mile roads, again, for some reason, although I have to say my favorite area to fish is up by Selfridge for early season fish. Mile roads, more numbers, more size, and for now anyway, for now. For some reason, Selfridge takes a little bit longer to pick up. Mile roads, it's on right now. I mean, it's been on since March. Anybody that's been out there, it's been on since March. They've been getting 50, even up to 100 fish days since March, weather permitting. So it's been on since, I mean, we have the new season, right? We got more time to fish. We can fish year round. And the guys have been out there and they've been doing really good. So one thing is temperature. A lot of people key on temperature. Not a real big issue. As soon as it iced out, they were catching fish. So it's more presentation. I know Jeff likes to throw rattle trap. He's been throwing rattle trap a little bit, doing really good with that. You know, yo-yoing it slow and bringing it back slow. I've been using the crankbait, swim baits would be good. One thing we haven't done well yet on is the drop shot. Still working it. Drop shot hasn't really picked up for me anyway, but the tube has been doing really well for Jeff. So the key thing here is that when you go out, you'll see your groups of boats. And there'll be a group of boats, let's see, right around here, right around here, right around here, and here, and then down here. And you'll see these groups of boats. This time of year, just go fish by the boats and you'll be by the fish. But you'll see where most of the boats are right now are in 3 to 6 feet of water. There's fish there. There's fish there. But we've been moving out 8, 9 feet of water and actually doing better and have these fish all to ourselves. So let's go a little bit farther down shore. And here we go, we're at Grosse Pointe, going all the way down to the Detroit River. Again, what are we looking for? We're looking for nutrient-rich water. So up here is 9 Mile, up here the tower and Ford's Cove. And you can see close to the shoreline, you got blue water out here, close to the shoreline, very close to the shoreline, is where all your nutrients go all the way down. The current is taking all this water down to the Detroit River. So your nutrients are staying very close to shore. It's very fun to fish down. If you guys have, if anybody's not fished Grosse Pointe area, it's a lot of rock and sand. Less weed and less soft stuff, it's more rock. And it's a whole different world down there. Highly recommend fishing the Grosse Pointe area, especially this time of year. One thing that works good over those rocks is jerk baits. Jerk baits are working good right now, but jerk baits, especially over those rocks, work really well. We have a lot of fun with that. Again, everything works, but jerk baits are just fun. But fishing close to shore, getting into there's pockets. If you go by the seawalls, there's little pockets by the seawalls. Little depressions. Bass love them. Absolutely love them this time of year. And you go up and fish, you're in 2, 3 feet of water, and all of a sudden, right next to seawalls, 4 or 5 feet deep, and the bass use it like a superhighway. They love it up there, and you can get into numbers of bass in a very small area. It gets to be very fun as you go down Grosse Pointe shores. And then down farther, you got Windmill Point down here, which I have to say, the majority of my 5-pound bass that I've caught in my career have been down there at Windmill Point this time of year. Yeah, not quite this time of year, but early in the season. You know, we're fishing earlier now, but once the season, the early season gets going, I get most of my 5-pounders down there over the course of my career. They just like to roam over those rocks. But again, what are we doing? We're following the nutrients.
Is there a best time of day to be out there fishing bass?
Good question. I don't think this time of year it matters. In the summertime, you have some variations in time of day. Does anybody have a thought about time of day? I mean, I have not seen it. I can pretty much go out any time of day right now. These fish are just so active and they're moving around all the time. But anybody notice the time of day thing going on this time of year? Yeah, I haven't either.
Sometimes we'll wait and not run out as early in the morning. You want to let the weather warm up a little bit, and once that weather warms up, them fish go on that feed. I mean, sometimes the feed is, 10, 11 o'clock, and they'll just go gangbusters. As the summer progresses and the
10
water
11
warms
o'clock.
up, the fight's a little bit earlier.
10 or 11 o'clock a.m.?
Yeah.
But we
I
were
went out
out.
at 4. I went out at 4 on Saturday and knocked them out until I had to leave.
Yeah, so he's out at 4, we were out at daybreak on Sunday, and we were heading home. Yeah. One thing that's kind of unique about this time of year too, and let's talk a little bit about this, is the fish school strong. What they do is they're grouped up in the schools and they move around. You can't see them because we're fishing dirty water, right? And what will happen is you'll hook one bass, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, we got one, and you make another cast to the spot, but the school has moved on. Okay, what do we want to do? We hook one right in that spot and we want to cast back to the spot. Well, we do. We might catch 1 or 2 or 3 out of that school, but that school's on the move. So that's one thing to keep in mind this time of year too, is it's a lot of fan casting, a lot of waiting, making a lot of casting until you get down to the school. You're in dirty water, you can't see, you're not fishing structure, and we're going to talk about the type of structure we are going to fish. We're going to talk about that next, but how you put yourself in the zone. But you're not fishing a rock pile, you're not necessarily fishing a specific spot, you're fishing an area. And you're kind of picking off schools as they come by. Just keep making lots of guesses. So let's take one more look at the nutrient-rich water. This is up by Harley Ensign, down to the Black Creek. And again, I think, like I mentioned, this is off of the Google Earth. And it probably was east wind when they took this. If you look up here, up in this part, see how clean it is? This is the river, and it's definitely, this is the river water coming out. But look how clean it is right there. The wind is pushing the clean water into the Clinton River right there, and it does that sometimes. But this is the residual water that was left over from the Clinton River and all occupying that bay. And you can see how rich that is. And I can tell you that we've had some really good days of smallmouth just up in that bay between those 2 points. But the key is that you can see down here too, with Black Creek, you see the water coming out there, water coming out there, and you see the nutrient-rich water there. And again, as far as your largemouth, your St. Clair Metro Park is right there. You got all those canals right out in front. Black Creek right there. Black Creek start from the front. You just work your way back, and you'll be catching largemouth this time of year. If you go back to the island too, sometimes the island is good back there by the launch. It's hit and miss. Sometimes the smallies will even be back there this time of year. The schools, the smallies will run in there or run back out, and you might catch the smallies back there too. So again, nutrient-rich water is what you're looking for. Totally the opposite of what we look for in the summer. So the next thing I want to talk about is a chapter in my book, No Secrets on Lake St. Clair. This is the 3rd one in the series. And what I want to talk about is the key, one of the keys anyway, to fishing Lake St. Clair all year round, but definitely right now. And that is the flats. Smallies love flats. Smallies like a lot of things. Smallies like cabbage. They like a lot of variety. They don't like the same thing over and over again. But one thing for sure is I've noticed they really, really like flats. And what's helpful to us as far as fishing flats is we can find the fish on the flat if we know we're fishing a flat. So what is a flat? Well, the way I define a flat is it's a continuous structure that holds bass for a period, has a bottom area with consistent depth or a low slope that leads to a change in structure that is not a flat. Okay, basically you have an area that's a relatively flat or flat, and at some point it's not flat anymore. There's a drop off, there's a seawall, there's an edge, there's even maybe a rise, and all of a sudden the flat isn't flat anymore. Okay, but you define the flat as an area that's isolated, it's flat. Everywhere around it, it's not flat, but right where you're at, it is flat. Okay. We're going to get into this just a little bit more on the models. It'll make a little bit more sense. But I think the graphic's a pretty good one, where you can see here, you define the flat right there. Here's a drop off, that is not the flat. There's a trough, that is not the flat. And here's a sandbar, that is not the flat. The flat, you can pretty much isolate right there. And the advantage of fishing a flat is you can define it as an angle. It's a piece of structure. St. Clair is so huge. It's a huge body of water. Sometimes eliminating water is more important than finding fish. If you can eliminate where you're not going to fish, then you can concentrate on areas that are more productive. So if I also can take and flip that over and say, well, if I'm gonna fish flats, then I'm gonna fish areas that are productive. Because I know smallmouth love flats. And on St. Clair, it's so big, if we can take a piece of St. Clair and say that's a flat on Lake St. Clair, we can fish that flat and know by the time we're done fishing it whether there's any fish there or not. Why? We're all pretty experienced at what we do. We're throwing baits that are probably going to catch fish. I mean, how many times have we been out and you're throwing your confidence bait and you're not catching fish? And you determine, well, maybe there aren't any fish there. Well, maybe there aren't. And you can take a flat like this and you can say, fine, I took my best baits, I fished this flat, they're just not on this flat. Because why? You can start in the middle of the flat, work your way out, you can work the edges, you can work the entire flat. And once you've worked the entire flat with your confidence baits, then you can say, all right, this flat isn't going to work. Now, why is that important? Because this flat, whatever flat it is, doesn't matter where you're at on Lake St. Clair, there's thousands of flats out there. Is that flat in 15 feet? Is it in 10 feet? Is it in 9 feet? Is it in 6 feet? Is it in 3 feet? Where's this flat at? I just fished a flat, let's just say, for example, in 6 feet of water, and I didn't catch anything. I don't think I would fish another flat in 6 feet of water the rest of the day, unless I changed the structure. If I was fishing a sandy flat and I went to a rocky flat, maybe I would do that. But I might not fish another flat for the rest of the day in 6 feet of water. I might move to 7 feet. I might move to 8 feet. I might move to 3 feet. But I would say that flat right there didn't produce, so I'm going to make a change. And the change I'm going to make, at least in this case, would be depth, if I determine there's no fish there. This is going to become really important when we're talking about spring bass fishing. Now let's take a look at the mile roads at 12 mile. This is a rough representation of what the mile roads at 12 mile look like, the bottom looks like. And this is a profile of how the flat starts here, shallow, going to deep. And if you'll see, if I can get underneath this right, here we've got a low slope flat. It goes from 1 foot to 5 foot, and it takes a long time to get there. Okay? I still call that a flat. It's continuous and it's slow. And nothing's happened. If you go up and fish this area in 12 mile, there's not a lot up there. It's sand, maybe a little rock, every once in a while a little patch of weed, but it's all the same. I'm calling that a flat. It's a low slope flat. And all of a sudden, right around 6 feet, you see it takes a quick drop down to 8 feet. So all of a sudden, it's no longer this slow sloping flat. It drops off, and we have a drop off. And now you have another low slope flat at 8 and 9 feet. We'll see how this works out in a minute up at Memorial Park. Then once you get past 9 feet, roughly you have a 10-foot flat, 12-foot flat, 14-foot flat, 15-foot flat. Roughly that's how that goes. So you have big flats out there that are different depths. Why does this help us? Once you determine what depth the fish are at, you can stay at that depth and keep catching fish all day long at that depth. I had one time, I used to do a newsletter, and I did this for 10 years. It was called the Combat Bass Fishing Newsletter, and it would go out all over, even as far as Indiana and Ohio. And that guy from Indiana called me one day. He says, hey, I just fished this tournament. He says, I just placed and cashed in this tournament, and I want to tell you, I used your newsletter. Well, the newsletter is about Lake St. Clair. He's fishing Indiana. He says, I read in your newsletter that all the bass were 12 feet of water. Fishing 12 feet of water, you're going to catch them. So I tried it down in Indiana, and it worked. And he ended up cashing in a tournament. Weird, okay? I'm not saying that's supposed to happen, but it did happen. So in other words, depth really does matter. Especially when you're talking about flats in Lake St. Clair. Once you find them at that depth, you can catch them over and over and over again. That's why you get the 50, 7,500 fish days, is because you just get on top of them. You just keep rolling. Keep rolling, because that's where the fish are located. So you can see that the distance here is about 4.5 miles I've got pegged out here as far as the model roads of 12 miles. Now here's how it works out in real life. I know it's just a graphic, but in real life you go out there, these boats are going to be there almost every day this week, next week, the next week, the next week, and this is up by Memorial Park. We know it's Memorial Park. Why? Is because we've got this tent right here that right now it just looks like it doesn't have the skin stretched over it. It just, you see the frame, but it's roughly a 13.5 miles is what it's called. at Memorial Park is at the end of Masonic, which is 13 and a half. And you will see, remember we talked about flats, right? Well, you'll see boats in 8 to 9 to 10 feet of water from here till through June. Okay? They will be in that depth. Why? There's a little flat down there. It's a spawn, that's where they tend to spawn. And we might have a little bit more water this year, so it might be 9, 10, and 11 feet of water this year because we got a little more water. But the boats will still be there. Now I can tell you, we went by on Sunday, and the boats are more than 3 to 6 feet of water. You'll see a lot of boats at 3 to 6 feet. So this time of year, right now, they might be a little shallower. But you'll see that this right here will hold consistent year after year after year after year. Not only Memorial Park, but you can duplicate that at 400 Club, you can duplicate it at 11 Mile. Once you find the flat that they're on, all the boats will be grouped there. This is not a secret, okay? This is not a secret. This is what happens every single year. You go out there and see this yourself any day of the week, pretty much. It'll be either a few boats there, or it'll be up to 50 boats on one spot, just in that one flat area. But anyway, so what you can see though is that we've talked about this low slope flat. That's a low slope flat, 8, 9, 10 right there. And the boats will be lined up there from even as far down as, I got it down as far as 12 Mile there. And then when you get to 11 Mile, the structure changes and you get to shallower flats down by 11 Mile. So any questions about the flats? Okay, this is really key. I had to go to the whole chapter to this. There's micro flats, little tiny flats where the bass accumulate on. There's flats in rivers. There's flats all over the place, and smallmouth love flats. So once you've identified where the flat is and found the fish, you can just keep catching fish all day long. And then a lot of it, I can tell you down at Windmill Point, for instance. Good example is Windmill Point. The fish, you can dial the fish in to a half a foot. They'll be at 5.5 feet, but they won't be at 6. Or they won't be at 5, but they'll be right at 5.5. Now, there's fish all the way through the zone, but you'll find your better fish will be right at a half foot mark somewhere. That's how much you can dial it in on Windmill Point. Why? Because it's a really slow flat like this, and you'll find your bigger fish will be right down some mark. But once you hit 5.5 feet, 6.5 feet, 4.5 feet, maybe it's 4 feet exactly, you just run that and you just keep catching fish over and over again. That's how you run. That's how you work the flats. You can take this out deeper too. When it gets to summertime, deeper flats out there in the mile roads, you can do the same thing.
Is there anything out there on the bottom that they're adhering to? I mean, any, like weeds or rocks, or is it just this vast wasteland out there?
That's an excellent question. And the question is there anything there that they're actually focusing on, adhering to? Is there structure out there that they're relating to? I can tell you, if you're out by even as far as Memorial Park, but certainly down by 12 Mile, there's an occasional boulder, a little rock or boulder out there. There'll be almost a fish every boulder. So if you can GPS those boulders or those rocks, you can pick up a fish every boulder out there. Once you get out further, and 12, 13, 14, 15 feet, there are differences in the bottom. And that's what you're keying on. You look at your graph when you're running. A lot of times, I'll just run. A lot of times I won't go to a specific spot. I'll just run out there and try to look for a difference in the bottom and stop and start fishing. So you know how you can tell if there's soft bottom or hard bottom on your graph?
Yeah.
What you can do is just run on plane and just watch your graph. And all of a sudden you see the bottom change, start fishing right there, right where the bottom changes. What does it change to? Not sure. Sometimes it'll change, there'll be a cabbage out there. Sometimes there'll be a area where there's just rock. It won't be sand anymore, but there'll be a little rock around, small rock. It just gets hard. Sometimes the bottom just gets hard. But the bass will relate to those changes. And you can fish for years out there and not catch bass if you don't find those changes. You got to find the changes to find the bass a lot of times. Now, the exception is post-spawn. We're not there yet. We're a long way away from post-spawn. But post-spawn, the bass roam a lot. And so a lot of times drifting across these big areas, you'll catch more fish than targeting. That's one of the exceptions. Yeah.
This time of year, what we'll do is start fishing. I always put a little heavy tube on, and just to pull. I'm not fishing with it. What I do is I throw it out, and I feel what's on the bottom, so I can figure out why are those fish there. You know, you're asking if it's rocky or sandy, well, it's muddy, and you're not for sure. take something a little bit heavier out and drag it on the bottom and see what you're doing. Just gives you a little bit more of an idea of where they're at, you know, once you start getting into them.
That's really true. A lot of times we'll be drifting and dragging, and you'll feel that bottom is soft, soft, soft. All of a sudden you'll start feeling a harder bottom, and you'll get bent right away. As soon as you start feeling it changing the bottom, just like you have said. Yep. Okay, what I want to do is point you towards some resources because, and you guys can ask any questions about anything today before we're done. But I want to point you towards some resources that you can use from here on out to dial in on some of these fish and to keep on top of this. What I've done is I developed a website called St. Clair Report. You guys know I've been at this a long time. I've got maps, I've got books, I've got websites and stuff. I've kind of pulled it all together under one roof. This is a free website. It's a news website and information website, and it can put you in if you stay in touch with what's going on in Lake St. Clair on a regular basis, when you get on the water, you'll have an idea of what the trends are. And trends are really important. I do a whole seminar on trends. But if you watch what's happening on St. Clair Report, you'll get a lot of up-to-date information. There's fishing reports, and we give detailed information on that. And I'm going to go into how you do it. But also there's some tools that you can get to just like this. You don't have to poke all over the internet. You can get them right off this one website. So let's start going through this real quick, because resources I find are really important. There's our friends. Our friends are good resources. Doc Talk, maybe not such a good resource. But over the years, I think people have learned to either trust my information or know how my information is presented in such a way that they can use it to their advantage. So let's go to the first one, and that's Marine Cruiser, and it's an interactive map of Lake St. Clair. Has anybody not used Marine Cruiser? Okay, you guys have not seen it? Okay. And what it is it's an interactive map of Lake St. Clair. It's marinecruiser.com, but you can jump to it right off the website. And I'll show you how the website's set up so you can jump right to it. But anyway, on Marine Cruiser, you can zoom in, zoom out, you can get your GPS coordinates off of spots. It's an interactive, free internet map of Lake St. Clair. It was put together by a friend of mine, Dan Zawada. He created this product, and as I say product, it's free. And he really did quite a nice job on it. But it's one way you can do your research real quick. You might have a mapping program at home that you use, but you can use this in conjunction with it. How accurate are the GPS coordinates? I find them accurate enough to do my work, and then I can compare them with other things. So I find this to be a really good source, marinecruiser.com. Another one is the satellite imagery. Anybody not using satellite imagery yet? Everybody does the satellite? Okay. Satellite's interesting. You can jump to this right off my website, and what it gives you is at least in this one section, it'll give you Lake Erie, and then you see Lake St. Clair over there in the upper left. This is what you see when you pull up the screen at first. And we're talking about nutrients, right?
Yeah.
Well, this is from 2 days ago. Okay, this is what it looked like 2 days ago. And you can see Lake St. Clair right there. Look at the Canadian shoreline. I know I want to fish nutrient-rich water, and I don't think I want to fish that much nutrient-rich water. It's pretty heavy out there. But the other thing too is it's out of season for bass right now. Canada does not have an open season for bass at this time. And then of course you see the U.S. side is cleaner, at least from what we can see there. But what I do is I take this and I do a right click, and you can save as. Now if you do this sort of thing yourself, you can save this image onto your computer. Why is this important? Because we can get a better look at Lake St. Clair if we do that. And what I do is I save it onto my computer and I crop it, type it. And then I get an image of Lake St. Clair that looks like that. It's not super clear, but it's clear enough to get the job done. And this is 2 days ago in Lake St. Clair, what it looked like. So if you're planning a trip to Lake St. Clair or planning on fishing, let's say the Canadian side, you might want to have second thoughts about fishing that. But you can at least say, okay, the water's clean enough, or whatever. Once you do this enough, you get an idea of what it's supposed to look like. And I use the satellite all the time for different things. Keep in mind that different wind directions will push the silt around too. And you'll see that if you look on this often enough, you'll see the different wind directions. Another one is the marine forecast. I don't know, everybody has their favorite weather. Everybody. It's just one of those things. It's like a spinnerbait or something. You got your favorite brand, right? Well, one thing I recommend is the National Weather Service. I don't know if you use it now, but the National Weather Service has a marine forecast that's a little bit more detailed than what you would get in some of the standard forecasts that you get locally. And so you can jump right to the marine forecast. And in the marine forecast, I find that you get the best detail. Now, you even get more days up here as far as the graphics. I just crop it real tight. But if you can look, this is the rain forecast from this morning. Okay, I pulled it up this morning. And it's talking about north winds today, and it'll tell you 1 feet as far as the waves are concerned. North tonight, northeast at 6 knots, 1 feet. There's your water temperature, your air temperature. Here you got east-northeast now on Saturday night, pushing south at 9 knots. And one foot there. And of course, here's the text of it all. It goes all the way to Tuesday. And if you notice, all the way to Tuesday, you get the wind. You don't normally get wind that far out with the other forecasts. You usually get wind out for 2 days, maybe 3 in some circumstances. Here, they're at least giving you an idea of what the wind's going to be like going all the way out to Tuesday. This is actually rather helpful because fishing in an east wind on the U.S. side is a little uncomfortable when it's cold. So I'd like to know when it's blowing hard from the east. Fishing from the west is certainly the best on the U.S. side. Love that. That's always a good thing. But anyway, the marine forecast, you can jump to it right off of my website. Another one is articles. I have articles on this website. You can see this is our seminar today, right there. But I also have a bass report that I put in right after we fished on Sunday. And also, kind of what we're talking about today, looking at the spring smallmouth on Lake St. Clair there. There was a Masters walleye tournament that came in, and I covered the walleye tournament a little bit on the site with their weigh-ins and other information. Bob Mann from Canada works with me, and he's been putting reports on for walleye lately. His bass report should start pretty soon. He's from Canada, but he'll be fishing U.S. water here for a little bit too. So these are very current. All this is very current. I update this website every day. This is not something you have to wait for updates. I update at least Fresh Catch, at the very least, gets updated every day, and that's the next section is Fresh Catch. And Fresh Catch are links. So I put some links, important links on there. Anything I can find. When the walleye tournament was coming up, the guys were looking for information on walleye, so I found some walleye reports. I found some, like Lance Valentine had a walleye tutorial thing I put on there. John Bondi had one on there. I put a lot of different reports from a lot of different people in the Fresh Catch section so that you can link off to it and get some, I mean, they take great tutorials on how to fish the Detroit River and stuff like that. And so we put them on there, and you could actually link off to it. There's this whole series of links right down here, and I find crazy stuff too. Well, right now we've got this video is pretty funny. There was just a funny video I found that's on top. A couple guys cheating at tournaments, got busted, things like that. I put things like that up there. You also, they talk about the California fishing ban. See, right there, megamouth shark caught in Japanese fishing net. But then here's smallmouth on St. Clair with Art. Results for the walleye tournament. DNR fishing report, I try to keep that up to date. And so you get this Fresh Catch gets updated every single day. So you're always getting fresh information. Why is this important? Because if you don't fish St. Clair all the time, if you don't have a chance to be out there 3, 4, 5 days a week, all of a sudden you get out there on, let's say, a Saturday, and you have to figure everything out from scratch. Well, here, if you kind of stay up to date with the information and what's going on in Lake St. Clair, you can then have an idea of kind of where the fish are positioned, what's happening, see some of the reports. I link off to GreatLakesBass.com. There's fishing reports at GreatLakesBass.com too. Guys report in there. I kind of link off to that. Try to give you the absolute best information I can on Lake St. Clair so that by the time you go out, you already have an idea of where everything stands. Also, you can link off to the Coast Guard Station wind and weather data. So what's nice about this is when you link off to this is the one down by the 11 Mile Coast Guard Station down there. So that'll give you the current wind speed, and it'll give you, oh, it gives you barometric pressure, yeah, see that down there too. It gives you the wind speed and the gusts. You can see atmospheric pressure there, air temperature, and it should give you water temperature somewhere too. Not yet, I'm not seeing the water temperature there yet, but they should start doing the water temperature as well. And there's also Canadian Weather Buoy, also they have that link right off that site as well. And also Sinclair water levels. That's another thing you can link right off to off the website. Now, we all know the water's up, right? Well, I've been tracking the water levels, and this is from the Corps of Engineers, U.S. Corps of Engineers. This will take you right to their site, right with their charts. They update it around the 6th of the month, every month, and you can see where the water levels are headed. Why is this important? Well, I can tell you that 20 years ago, we were fishing in water levels that were not unlike what they are today. They're not quite there yet, but they're getting there. And we would fish in these water levels. Well, guess what was there in those water levels? New fishing spots that we haven't seen in years because it's been so shallow for so long. Now some of these old fishing spots are coming back. So the water level chart is giving us an idea of what the trends are and what we can expect. I imagine some of you guys fish tournaments, you're planning ahead, you're looking ahead down the road to the summer where you're going to be fishing. Start making some plans now to pre-fish some of these old areas. Some of these old areas are going to start coming back. Interesting thing though, they don't come back necessarily like this. Sometimes it takes a couple of years for a spot to come back. We had one spot in the middle channel that came back really good the last couple of years, came back quickly. Didn't expect it, made a cast in there, and we've been just doing great over there in the middle channel. But there's other spots in the north channel and south channel that all of a sudden the water levels are up. Where are the bass? Sometimes it'll take a couple of years for them to come back. Let me explain. When the water levels were dropping, I watched the same thing happen. The bass were up on these shallow spots. And every year the water level kept dropping and they'd still stay up there. They were stubborn. And the water level drops more and they'd still stay up there. And finally the water level dropped to the point where they just vacated the area. But it took time. It took a couple of years of the water levels dropping before the bass actually moved out. Now the bass are going to take, I think, a couple of years to move into some of these areas. It's just going to take time. The ecosystem's changing and they're getting used to it. Think about it this way. The surface area of Lake St. Clair is pretty vast. If you increase the surface area of Lake St. Clair by 1 foot, all of a sudden there's all this new water all over the place for them to choose from. I think that they're still making their choices, really, with the higher water levels. We struggled a little bit last year once we got to August. I mean, I had the best year I ever had last year, but we still struggled to try to find fish sometimes because some of the traditional spots weren't working out. I went one day out into the river. St. Clair River's been tough the last 3-4 years, okay? It used to be great, and now it's been getting a little tough. I went out one day, and I hit, what did I hit? I hit 25 to 35 spots. I can't remember how many spots I hit. I mean, I just went in, that's what I do with my research, right? Got 1 2.5 pound smallmouth. These are key quality spots that I know work, and I got 1 2.5 pound smallmouth. Things have changed. Things have changed a lot. So a lot of times the traditional spots haven't been working out with this higher water. So we have to keep on top of it, keep seeing how things have changed. Does anybody remember when St. Clair used to be like pea soup? Okay, that was easy. Find any weed bed in shallow water, throw a spinnerbait, crankbait up there, and you catch 2 pound bass. Things have changed. Things have cleaned up. The bass have moved. Well, the bass are on the move again. They're on the move again, and some of the traditional areas aren't working out as best as well as we would expect them to. Keep checking them, but I still think that the change in the ecosystem is changing the bass position, and we haven't learned everything yet. We really, really haven't learned everything yet about how much it has changed. One of the other things that's changed too, and I know I'm throwing a lot of stuff in here, but it's all going to be on tape. You can go to, is it the Facebook site for Sportsman's Direct? Or, yeah.
And my YouTube channel.
Okay, and to the YouTube channel for Sportsman's Direct. Is it your YouTube channel or Sportsman's Direct? Yeah. Okay, Justin's YouTube channel. Can you tell me which one that is? What's it called?
Out in Michigan.
Out in Michigan?
Yeah, I believe that's what it is.
Okay, out in Michigan. And you go there, you can see this video. This video will be on there, on the site there, so you can always go back and review some of these things. Because I know I go by a lot of things really quickly. But one thing I want to talk about is forage real quickly before we wrap everything up, is that forage has changed out there in terms of what the bass are feeding on. Now, a lot of this is anecdotal, but I think a lot of people would agree with this, is that there are less gobies. Years ago, every time you drag a tube out there or whatever, you'd feel that peck all the time. The gobies would grab the tube like this. Now you don't feel it at all. It almost never happens. And so definitely, there definitely seems to be less gobies. We're not hooking as many by accident and everything. Now I can tell you, I put the camera down, the underwater camera, I see plenty of gobies down there, but it's not like it used to be. And so it looks to me, at least from what I've seen, from what the bass are coughing up, when we're catching them and where we're catching them, is there's been a shift in the forage to more bait fish or like alewife. Okay, now that's part of the shift. Okay, that doesn't mean that they're not feeding on gobies. That doesn't mean that they're not feeding on crayfish. It just means that there's been a shift now in the system where you're seeing more bass feeding on schooling bait fish. How do we know this? Well, you can go out there and if you see a bunch of water boiling on the surface, it's not always white bass anymore. Sometimes now it's a school of smallmouth busting alewife at the surface. Okay? And we go in there and we catch them, we bring the bass up to the boat and they'll spit an alewife right up on the boat. That's what they've been feeding on. That's how we know this. So for sure it's happening. It just seems to be happening more frequently. One thing, years ago, we're going back, again, 20 years or so. Anybody know the seagull pattern? Right? Or terns or whatever is floating out there? Any winged creature that's floating out there? Well, I never trusted the seagull pattern. I went and did it for years, and I gave up on it. We're going back 20 years or so. And I just gave up on it. Because it was always white bass or something underneath here. Just never played out for me. And so I gave up on it completely. Totally, I mean, I'd be driving down, there could be 2, 3 seagulls out there, and I just keep on driving, I could care less. I just keep on going. Nowadays, there's one seagull out there on the water. I assume that he's sitting on top of a school of bait fish. And I assume that there's smallmouth underneath. I make that assumption. Why? Because on those tough days, in those really, really tough days when all the spots aren't working out, the spots you go to aren't working out, if I go out there and fish underneath that seagull, of course I'll pull up, he'll fly away, we'll make a cast and we'll catch bass. So the seagull pattern is in play in my book anyway. I'm liking the seagull pattern, but I tell you, I gave up on it for years, guys. But now I'm back on it, and I'm really that has actually pulled out some other days. So we've covered a lot of territory. Well, let me just do one other thing here, real quick. Other information sources, and I'll just do this real quick. If you haven't seen my mark maps, I have a complete set of mark maps with fishing spots on them, 410 spots, 27 maps, all the way up from the Fawn Island, all the way down to Windmill Point, Lake St. Clair and St. Clair River. And what I do is I detail on these maps spots. So I basically mark my spots up. And on the back, you get the information for each spot. Many times the GPS will work that. So on my mark maps, this one's at Windmill Point. And you can see that there's 17 spots here, 17 spots marked. Now, I have the mark map set, but what I have as far as information and live information I want to show you is if you go to Mark Maps Live, if you're a Mark Maps owner, if you own the Mark Maps, you can sign up for a subscription to this. And this is called Mark Maps Live. Now you can see that so far this year we've got 5 reports in right now. And what this is you can see the spots marked here. Here's Mile Roads, and there's the numbered spots. Metro Beach, numbered spots. Grosse Pointe Shores, numbered spots. Those are the numbered spots on the mark map. And those are the spots that we fished. So these are my staff, myself and my staff, when we go out, we put our information into Mark Maps Live. So if you own the Mark Maps, you can go to Mark Maps Live and get current information from the times that we've been out fishing. So you've got the St. Clair report, you've got the articles, you've got the fresh catch, you've got new information coming in through there. You can go to Marine Cruiser, do some of your work there, see a satellite data, but then you can also compare it with what's in Mark Maps Live. Now the spots are one thing. I have spots in different colors. If it's in purple, then that means it's a pre-fishing spot. It's a spot that should have fish historically or something that we understand that's where the fish should be. And we're giving you spots to go pre-fish. But if it is in green, those are tournament quality fish we're catching on those spots. And one thing that's really important are the ones in red. Because a lot of times eliminating water, knowing where the fish are, is really important too. Now, to add on to this, we have notes that we put in. So you're going to get notes in this case. And in this one, we're looking at for the 19th. This is when we went out on the 19th. And maybe Jeff went out. And here you got his best bite in 8 to 9 feet, got 13 smallmouth between 4 and 6. You saw that. This water quality worse than a couple days ago. Here on spot number 15, one caught in 10 feet of water. At Grosse Pointe shores, nothing caught in about 20 minutes. And this all relates to that report on the 19th. There, all that information goes to the 19th. So when you click on those little balloons over there, they'll kick out this information over here. Pretty powerful stuff when you put it all together. So anyway, any questions about St. Clair in general? Or yeah.
Any days that you will not fish because of wind? Correct.
For comfort only, east winds, I would rather not fish. Like tomorrow morning, we may not go because it's going to be a little chilly and a little high winds. There were, I don't know if there were 20 mile an hour winds, not today, but my friend went out. He got beat up pretty good. But if I had to go fishing, if it was Saturday and I wanted to go fish and catch something, go launch in St. Clair Metro Park. Fish a largemouth. I mean, that's safe over there.
As far as directions, it really doesn't make a difference to you if it's decent. I mean, say if it comes out east, you're not say, oh, I'm not going out.
Well, absolutely not. I'll go out.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Keep in mind, I like to research. I like to check things out all the time. I went for years, and east winds gave me fits for years. We could be out there in a west wind and catching fish, and the wind would shift to the east and would shut the bite down. Okay, we've had that happen. And a lot of wind shifts will shut bite down, not just east wind, but a lot of wind shifts will shut the bite down. That will happen. But what I learned is by staying out there in those, I start to find spots. I can count them on one hand, the number of spots I like to fish in an east wind. I can't wait for an east wind to go fishing. And a strong east wind at that, the stronger the better. But I can count them on one hand. West wind, I got a lot more, But east wind, but I have them. And why do I have them? Because I stuck with it. I went out there anyway. Yeah. It's a lot of times, some of it's trial and error. Sometimes you get lucky. And you just run across a spot, you catch a fish, and then you try to figure out why did I catch a fish on that spot? And then you start working your way out from there. Remember the marked map that I showed you? If let's go back to that. And if I had something to give away today, I would. But I have, by the way, I do have. You guys can come up and grab samples here. I've got sweet green and brown craw up here. You guys can take one of each to take home with you to try. But anyway, on this map right here, you've got spots going all the way from 1 to 17. Let me ask this question, because this goes to your point, sir, is that when you're fishing and you catch a fish, why did you catch a fish in that spot? Why was it there? And then you start to work your way out from there. This is how I work my information from what you really have to work with. Branch your information out from there. Can anybody tell me what spot I started with on this one point? What was the spot that started me? And it's not number one. I'll give you a hint. It's not number one. Okay. So I mean, guys, you just
5 or 4.
5 or 4. That would make sense, wouldn't it? Because it's the widest area. Not 5 or 4. 11. 11. Where's 11 at? Ah, that would be another good choice. That would make sense. This area is big. Guys have not been on the Windmill Point. This is huge. So they're making really smart choices as far as where you most likely start. No, that's not where I started. Anybody else want to take a shot at it? There is a single spot that I started with that developed the whole rest of this map. But it started on one spot. It's not obvious.
10.
It's 10. 10. I started as back in 1999 with the
Where's
underwater.
point at 10?
10 is right down here.
Okay.
And it's right down at that seawall point, okay?
Where everything funnels.
So,
That's where everything funnels.
right, and I got the underwater camera back in 1999. I started doing some of my research, and that's one of the first places I started researching with the camera. Learned a lot on that corner, but we found out that the fish actually stay there in the summer. They actually move out deeper into the river. But that's where I first started, was on number 10. And from number 10, I built the rest of this map, all from that one spot. So if you're out there in the east wind and you catch one fish, make that start working your way out from that. And you can build up spots like that yourself on your own map. Yeah, it's funny, I do that all the time with all my other maps, and it's really interesting. When you think about it, where I actually start to actually build these out, it gets interesting. Yeah.
So I have finally starting to use the electronics on my boat. I've got like an Elite 5 something fish finder that has the GPS and the fish finder on it. So this last time out, just jigging for walleye this last weekend when we did catch a fish, put a waypoint in there, you know. So what I mean, it's I attended your seminar out there at Outdoor Rama too,
thank
where
you.
you were doing the trends and I mean, so it sounds like you take a lot of good notes. So what, I mean, would it be a good idea to start having like a notebook and just say, okay, you know, waypoint number 1 on such and such a date, the water temperature was this, I was using this, caught a fish here. I mean, I catch few enough fish that I wouldn't get overwhelmed by that. But I mean, to start developing the patterns, you know, as well that way.
Yeah, and absolutely, I really highly recommend keeping a fishing log of some kind. I do a whole seminar on how to do that actually, but come up to me afterwards. I will send you one. I've got some of my old log books that I still have, and I'll send you one so you can kind of get started on it. The thing about logging information is really curious. You think if you crunched all the information in a computer, you'd come up with the perfect answer? These are biological creatures out there, and they don't always do what we expect them to do, even though we can dial it in. So what you're looking to do is you're only going to put the averages in your favor, really. It's just like baseball. You know, what's the next pitch going to be? Is it curveball? It's the fastball. It's kind of like that. You're trying to put the averages in your favor. Just like when we're talking about our stained water or nutrient water. Right now, we're trying to put the averages in our favor this time of year. If you do the same thing a month or two from now, you're not going to get the same result. So with your logging, you're going to find trends in your logging that are going to be helpful. But there are certain things if you miss in your log, make it worthless. You want to have, for sure, as much as possible, a GPS, you know, a GPS coordinate for the spot, you know, what you caught it on. And one of the things that I really recommend is diagramming the area yourself. So you actually diagram where you caught the fish and what's surrounding structure. What will happen is 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now, that'll make a big difference because you go back and then wind direction too. So if you can diagram that stuff, throw the wind direction in there, add that information, you put all that information together, you really got something. Because then you go back to the spot, you can visualize it, you can see what happened, what worked in that. And if there's been any changes, like I don't know how much difference we are from when we were 5 years ago in depth, I'm going to guess we're 2, 3 feet higher. That's going to change. You go back to your log, you can make that adjustment because you have that information in your log. But logging is really good, but it's not a perfect science. Unfortunately, I tried that when I first started this business, and it isn't a perfect science, but it's important.
One of the things with the new GPS is that you can hit your buttons all you want, take some footnotes, and then before you put your boat away, go back to your GPS spot, or if you're done fishing that spot, go back to it and dial it in. I have the date, the time, and what I did, and how I was fishing. I can log it all in there, and then I can go back into my GPS, and I can look for this time of year last year, and it'll show me what spots I was at.
Thank you. Thanks, Neil. Anything else? All right, guys. Hey, thanks for making the trip out. Big fun. Love having you guys, and hope we get a chance to do this again sometime. If you think of it, if you liked what you saw today or whatever, get on any of my social media stuff and say it was a great seminar, whatever. Appreciate that. There's St. Clair Report card here, but also has all my Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff. That's one thing I did not add in here. I probably should. It's in this last slide. But I put current stuff on Twitter, and Instagram, and I put current stuff up there. So I could be out on the water and I could put it right up on there. So if you subscribe to my account, watch it, you know, you'll get you get a reminder or whatever, some alert that comes up and says, yeah, I just posted something. It's probably something important that was just on the water. So you guys can get that right there, just more information for you. And please come up and, you know, there's sweet green up here, and there's brown pearl up here. If you guys want to take a sample of both of them with you, and thanks a lot for coming.